I'm the Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. So today, I'm back, surprise. Did you miss me? I hope so. I'm back to talk to you about everything that I read in March, which honestly wasn't a ton. I spent most of March offline on a much needed break. I was just getting too stressed out with everything that was going on. I had such limited time to do everything. Everything with YouTube wasn't fun anymore because it was all about trying to film in the shortest time possible, trying to make sure that I filmed on a specific day, because if I don't film on that day, I don't have the time to edit. I won't be able to post it. That's how tight I had myself scheduled. I had to take a step back and just be like, this isn't my job. This is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. I took a couple weeks off to get through a work conference that was just eating up so much of my time and making all of the scheduling so complicated. So now that that's over, I'm hoping that I will be back to my regularly scheduled Friday videos, but we shall see. I'm not making any promises at this point because I still have a lot of stuff coming up that I have to navigate around. So we'll see. We'll see how consistent I can be, but I'm at least gonna get this wrap-up video to you. It's not a ton of books. It's a super weird mix as well. And all of my reading was done in kind of like really choppy segments. So I don't know, it feels weird talking about some of these books because I just don't feel as connected to them as I normally do. But regardless, I am excited to talk to you about my thoughts on these books and tell you a little bit more about them. So without further ado, let's jump into the books now that I've rambled. All right, first things first, we have Sunday Morning by Jewel E. Ann. It's contemporary, I guess contemporary-ish. This is supposed to take place in the 80s, so I guess that's not really contemporary, but it's not really historical either. What do you call that? Anyway, it's forbidden, it's small town, and Sarah's a preacher's daughter. At her core, kind of a people pleaser. She's on the cusp of graduating and turning 18, and everyone expects that she's going to go to this community college in town, and she's gonna wait for her current boyfriend, who is the son of a wealthy rancher, wait around for him while he goes to college and makes it big in baseball, and then he'll come back and they'll take over the ranch and they'll get married. And she's just not actually sure that that's what she wants. She has a lot of bigger dreams about going to Nashville and becoming a singer, but she knows that that would severely disappoint her family. Her plan is just to kind of continue things as they are through the summer, don't rock the boat, and just deal with everything in the fall. But keeping the status quo ends up being a lot more difficult than she really anticipated because her brother's, no, not her brother, her boyfriend's brother, that would be a very different book. Her boyfriend's I haven't filmed in forever, and it's starting to, well, no, I would make these mistakes regardless. Anyway, boyfriend's brother ends up moving back to town. He's returning after serving in the military. He just spells trouble. He's tattooed. He's got some bad habits like drinking and smoking, but he's often in the barn playing guitar while also working the ranch. And since Sarah's also working on the ranch, and she also has musical aspirations, these two become drawn to one another. I really ended up enjoying this one. I had a feeling that I would because it had a lot of echoes of some of the things that I like in the Naked Fisherman duet, or the Fisherman duet. I actually don't remember the official name. Regardless, you know, it's someone wrestling with the fact that they've been raised really religious and they're on the cusp of 18. They're an adult, but they haven't really been given the tools to make adult decisions and figure out what it means to do what they want and not just what everyone else has dictated to them. It's a lot of her just like trial and error, trying to figure things out, and she starts out so naive, but also her really gaining the strength and confidence in herself to be okay with disappointing people. She didn't need to be miserable. She saw so many people around her be so miserable. People had all of these secrets that they didn't want to get out and had dreams of something else that just didn't pan out, but were really trying to hide it. And I really liked the hero because he set up these situations that let her kind of pursue what she wanted, but he himself never forced her to do anything or made it so that he was just like hand delivering something to her. She still had to make a decision to get her to her dreams of like singing in Nashville. Also really liked all the family dynamics that were at play here because you've got not only her father who's a preacher, the challenges that presents at home when she's trying to differentiate herself from her family and her trying to become an adult that maybe doesn't align with ideally what they would want for her. And I think this one really just got me in my feels. The only thing that I'll say is that when the hero first got introduced, the banter, it didn't feel like funny or have like a playful edge. Like it just kind of felt awkward and weird. It made that transition when he was really starting to become more of the actual like hero that you want for the heroine. It just made that transition a little bit more awkward and hard for me, but overall I would give this one a rating of 4 stars. Next up, I read or attempted to read Aurora Terminus by S.E. Fanetti, which I guess is a pen name for Susan Fanetti. This is a post-apocalyptic romance. The concept for this one is that the end of the world came about because of solar flares that knocked out all technology, and it just kind of led to chaos, every man for themselves. So Diana ends up escaping to her parents' place in the mountains, but she's there on her own. No one else is around her, and she's just trying to kind of scrape by. She's like surviving, but she's not really living. And she's got like a system that works. However, some less than savory people end up finding her and want what she has, including her. I never got to meet the hero, unfortunately, but apparently Gus is the hero, and he's also fled from a city, but he's living more of a nomadic lifestyle, kind of like moving from group to group, seeing really just the worst of humanity. But like I said, I didn't get to meet him because unfortunately, I did end up DNFing this. This started off slow. There was like some bits of danger, a little bit of an idyllic life, but it just felt a little bit dry. I just wasn't quite emotionally connecting with it just yet. I gave it the benefit of the doubt, at least initially. But once we actually got the plot set up and the direction of the book, I was like, immediately, no, there's animal death. And that's when I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, I can kind of feel what this tone or the feeling of this book is going to be closer to historical fiction or more like lit fic, where pain and suffering of the main character feels like a destination rather than an obstacle to get through to get to an happily ever after. I was kind of like, this is starting to feel like it's taking a tone that I don't necessarily love, and I've put down other like historical fiction because of this. Not that this is historical fiction, but like it has that kind of tone. And I checked the reviews, and there was a lot of people that, not a lot, there was like several people that kind of were articulating the same thing, where they were like, I liked that she got her happily ever after. I'm happy that she found someone, but I don't know that all this suffering really was worth it. And I was like, if I'm already feeling like this now, I'm certainly not going to feel better at the end. But I do think that if you don't mind that type of tone that I'm doing a terrible job of attempting to describe, and you want something post-apocalyptic, this is well written. This is like good in that sense. But for me personally, I was just kind of like, that's just not really what I'm looking for right now. And I don't know if it's ever what I'm going to be looking for. So I did DNF it. All right. So then I continued on to the 5th book in the Firebird Chronicles series. I reviewed books 1 through 4 last month. If you want to get my thoughts on those initial books, this 5th book is called Trials of Conviction by T.A. White. But the first book is Rules of Redemption. You do need to read these in order. This is a proper series. This is a space opera that has a slow burn romance. I'll talk about the first book so I don't spoil anything. The premise for this one is that Kira is a very decorated war hero, but she's left that entire life behind. And now she's living a solitary life as a scavenger. Nope, a salvager. She's finding these wrecks from the war that they had with another alien species and finding important pieces of data and information to bring back for analysis so that they can figure out how to better protect themselves. On her latest salvage, things kind of go haywire. There's this like really cool piece that she could get her hands on that would have a huge payout, but it means she takes some risk that she normally, well, I shouldn't say normally wouldn't. She's a risk taker. She takes some risks that are maybe ill-advised. It ends up forcing her to make repairs on her ship and go to a space station that she does not want to go to because it has too many ties to her past. So she's like, I need to get in, get out of this space station, get these repairs made, and just do it as quickly and quietly as possible. But she ends up drawing attention to herself when she ends up rescuing 2 children that she later finds are Tuon. Tuon are this kind of like solitary race. There's not a lot that's known about them. They are often referred to as wizards for these like magic-like capabilities that they seem to have, and they're in general just way more advanced than humans. Tuon humans and humans had originally allied themselves during the war because they had this common enemy. But now that we're in peace times, those relationships are starting to break down. When the Tuon become particularly interested in Kira for saving these children, they're like, hey, kind of feel like Girly Pop, this diva thing, should come back to our planet. The humans are like, absolutely, you're correct, she should. So she's going kind of against her will. So all she's thinking about this entire time is like, how do I escape this? I'm so sick of being a political pawn. Like I said, I've been binging this series. This is book 5. And honestly, this was the first book that I was kind of like, this did feel like it had a little bit of filler in it, which honestly, with how long this series is, it's pretty impressive that this is the first time that I've kind of been like, there's a little bit of fluff in this. This could have been cut down. But like, honestly, I love these characters. And I loved that this really delved into Kira's past in particular. There was so much more that we learned about her and what she's been plotting like since the first book. And this is the first book too where I really felt like the plot and the romance had really equal footing. So I was really loving that. Now that we're finally getting like true, juicy, delicious romance, I'm like, you know what? Not mad at it. If we need a little filler in order to make that happen, I'm okay. I'm just absolutely obsessed with Graydon. He will do anything for her. He is always at her back. He's very soft with her, but he is a warrior, so he's usually very hard, very emotionless. I feel like this author and the series just needs like so much more praise, so much more hype. They are so well written, so well plotted, and also have really intense emotion. And I feel like that can be a really hard balance for authors. The other thing that I really liked with this book was that there was a lot of playing with like, who's really the enemy? Is it someone that has the same goal but has made different decisions? Is your enemy someone that is against you only because that's their only option for survival? And I think this book really calls on the reader to reserve judgment and have empathy. Like I said, my only con with this one is that it did feel a touch fillery, but honestly, it only felt that way in hindsight. Like I wasn't reading the book feeling like it was filler. I just kind of like got done. I was like, wait a minute, that feels like it could have been shorter. Anyways, I'm still giving this one a rating of 5 stars. I absolutely love this series. So can I give it anything less? So next up I have Angel's Blood, and this is by Nalini Singh. This is a first in a super long series. I think the first 3 books follow the same couple, and then it moves on to other couples and then maybe circles back to them over time. At least that's kind of my understanding. This is like classic paranormal romance, like think the 2000s feel, angels, vampires. So we have Elena, and she is a vampire hunter. She is sought out by the Archangel Raphael, who is impressed with her abilities to track new vampires. Now, it's not a vampire that he wants her to go after, but instead an archangel that has become a terrifying killer. The problem is that Raphael has this very magnetic and seductive pull that she's constantly having to battle as she finds the source of this killing spree. Immediately when I was reading this, I was like, whoa, this feels a lot like a House of Earth and Blood series by Sarah J. Maas. And I think I saw someone talking about this. Maybe, am I spreading rumors and lies and misinformation? Potentially. But I thought I saw somewhere that SJM had used this as inspiration, so you can definitely feel it, but it's got way more of a 2000s flair, and it doesn't have that like high fantasy feel. It's very much urban fantasy. It's a little bit generic and tropey. If you've read any of the paranormal books from like the 2000s, this is gonna feel very familiar. She is a vampire hunter. She's part of a guild. She's a little bit of a lone wolf. She's stubborn and isn't charmed by this guy. Not her. And then he's smug and powerful, determined to have her. You know, so the setup of it is kind of typical. It just takes a minute for it to really feel like it's going in a unique direction. But it had lots of fun and dramatic scenes. Those were absolutely plentiful. I loved that there was just like a lot of casual diversity, both when we're talking about race and ethnicity, but also when we're talking about ability. The big downer for me with this book is that it just really felt disjointed. Like scene to scene, I would kind of like have a moment where I'm like, how did we get here? Felt like I was missing a little bit of connectivity between scenes of like how we arrived here and why we're staying here. Because it felt like here's a scene that we need to set up this thing, here's another scene to set up this thing. Okay, now that we've got this all set up, now we'll get into the plot. And it took a while to get through those scenes. I just feel feel like there needed to be a little bit more build there. And I do wish that there was more build with some of the corny moments between hero and heroine, because I felt like that got introduced very early on. We jumped the gun a little bit. But once we were focused more on that like main plot, it was way more fun, way more interesting, because the ending did not go how I thought it would. And I will admit there were a few corny elements that did take me out just like a hair, a skosh, a little bit. We all know that I'm very sensitive to that, but I'm really excited to see where this series goes. Like I said, this book might have not been my favorite, but I think this series has a ton of promise. Like I think there's so much that can be so good here. I gave this one a rating of 3 stars, but I'm definitely continuing on with the series. Next up, I have The Frat Boy by Nikki Sloane, and this is a reread that I did. It's part of an interconnected series. Why not throw a T in there? Series called The Nashville Neighborhood. This has some like SW, we've got new adult, college, hate to love, I guess, or rivals to lovers. I don't really know how to categorize this one. Colin and Madison are part of Greek life at their college. They're both participating in Greek Week and want to win the prize money desperately. So the latest thing that these two houses are participating in is a relay race, and it gets ugly quick. There's cheating, there is a heated exchange of words.
I can't help but to hear an exchanging of words.
There is an ensuing mud fight started by Maddie and Colin that gets both of their Greek houses in huge trouble. Their sorority and fraternity, when they go to a meeting to discuss the consequences, decide that instead of their houses suffering consequences, they're just going to punish the actual initial perpetrators. They're kicked out of their sorority and fraternity, and that means not only are they losing their social circle very close to the end of the school year, it also means that they don't have any housing and they need to find somewhere to live to finish out the semester. They both end up responding to an ad that offers room and board. They just have to do a few videos for a spicy content house. They end up showing up to the audition and realizing that they are going to have to do the scene with the person they currently hate most, the reason that they're even in this position. That is going to be their scene partner. What was funny is I thought I had waited long enough to do a reread, but I remembered this entire book. That's how memorable this bad boy is. So it made some of the like twists and turns and emotional moments not hit quite so hard, but there was still a lot of like fun, spicy scenes. I liked seeing the ratcheting up of tension between them and eventually getting like closer and closer and how they use some of the cam work that they're doing in order to do that. I also really liked how SW was handled because it wasn't treated as something like shameful or something that they were doing because they were like super desperate. It was more like, this is something that I've kind of always wanted to do, but also it doesn't go like so supportive that they're like saying everything to everyone. There are social consequences to this, even if they themselves enjoy what they do. I also really loved how there wasn't any jealousy with the work. Jealousy came more so if there was potential for more emotional connections with other people. And I loved how protective the hero was of her. He is firmly in her corner the entire time. He never points fingers, never blames her. It was just very deeply caring. Although I would say my reading this time around was probably closer to a 4-star, I'm going to keep my 5-star rating. Next up, I have Homebound, and this is by Lydia Hope. This is the first in an interconnected series for the Rick's verse, and I'm not going to give you the full blurb because I kind of felt like when I was reading it, I was like, this actually spoils way too much of the plot, so I'm going to give you like a slightly smaller slice of it. What am I talking about? In this world, Earth is in decline because the wealthy citizens have fled the planet, and basically the only people that really live there anymore are aliens and people who are truly destitute that are like barely scraping by. Gemma is one of those citizens, and she very luckily has a job working at the prison, and she's kind of works as janitorial staff, so she'll clean and also serve food to the inmates. One day she randomly gets reassigned to the alien ward, which is how she comes across a Rick's alien by the name of Simon, who is kind of rotting away in his cell. No one has cleaned the cell. She doesn't know how long it's been since he ate. She really takes pity on him and tries to really nurse him back to health. And eventually he starts to heal and a connection between them forms against all odds. This one I really had some mixed feelings about, but I'm kind of leaning towards this book wasn't for me. The world was interesting. It was very gritty, everyone kind of grabbing for whatever bit of power, but the characters and the relationship just didn't really do it for me. The characters, I just didn't I just didn't connect with them. The heroine was, I think she just didn't have a lot of nuance to her or a lot of things to make her feel realistic or interesting. Like she was just very sunshiny and naive, which just felt so at odds with the world that she's living in. And she also swooned over like really stupid stuff. Like I'm not joking, at one point she swooned over how the hero asks questions. It just really made her feel really childish. And then the hero really didn't give me anything. He doesn't really talk at all. And he barely shows interest in the heroine. The relationship, I felt like kind of jumped ahead. I was kind of enjoying the build of what was happening for like maybe the first like 50%. And then all of a sudden it went from her kind of caring for him not being able to talk, taking him around, and her really finding a lot of meaning and purpose in that, to her just being like madly in love with him and feeling just completely disoriented when she gets separated for a little bit. And then she tried to go through like all these crazy hoops in order to get back with him. I don't know. It was just really weird. How did we get to that level of desperation? I thought we were just starting to like build a little something. And then the first kiss was so bizarre. Bless you, Kevin. He's sunning himself in the window right now, and I just had a really good sneeze. But the first kiss was kind of bizarre. It came out of nowhere. I wasn't even sure if the hero was conscious for it at first. And then she was talking about how like their chapped lips were rubbing together. Ew, I cannot think of something less sexy. And then there was just like some leaps in logic that started happening with the plot, where it was like the heroine would get a bit of information and then she would just like make all these presumptions with such limited information that I was like, how did you make the leap to get like way over here? This was an odd one. Like I said, I kind of kept waiting for this book to get going and then it never did. The pacing just feels more like this would be the first book in a proper series and not a standalone for a couple. Having a hard time with this one because it's not like there was anything like super horribly wrong. I can totally see people liking this book, but it just really failed to deliver for me. So I'm kind of wanting to rate it somewhere between like 2 and 3 stars. It kind of depends on the day. Next up, we have Bloomtown Gensis, and this is by Allie North. This is a first in a duet. It's a saffern. That's a new category. It's a sapphic western. So it's got like a historical feel to it. But we have a preacher's daughter by the name of Abby Proctor on her way out to meet up her husband in the West. He's been setting up this town. It's ready for her to come out there and be a teacher. So she's on a train trying to start her new life. But on the way, she ends up kidnapped by a notorious lady bandit by the name of JT London. And she is held for ransom. So she is plotting her escape, but she ends up uncovering a pretty large conspiracy and, you know, kind of starts falling for her captor. I really loved this. This literally felt like a Western movie, but make it in book form. You've got the desert, you've got shootouts, drifters that are up to no good, bandits. There's a really sweet found family element. There was also like great inclusion of diversity, both in respect to other cultures, races, ability. And if someone kind of says something out of line, it does get addressed. So I just felt like a lot of that was like handled very well. Jo is very sweet and naive. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, Baron, who is Jo? And that would be a great question because I don't know either. The name I meant to say was in fact Abby, because that's the heroine I'm talking about. Anyway, we should get back to the video now. Without coming across like an idiot, strikes that perfect balance of learn things on the fly and be a little bit scrappy, but also maybe not having a ton of information and a lot of know-how up front. And then JT's kind of like the foil to that because she is, you know, very tough, rough and tumble, but she kind of slowly shows how much of a soft side she really has. There were a few moments where I felt like this got just like a touch repetitive. There was like multiple attempts to run away. There was changing her opinion on JT that happened just like at any point when she got new information. So there was like a few things that I was kind of like, you know, I think we had to cut down on some of this fluff, but man, that cliffhanger was intense. I didn't realize when I started this that this was a proper duet. I thought they were interconnected for some reason. I don't know why. I don't 100% know where things go from here, so I'm excited to continue on. I'm just waiting for that loan to come in from my library. Rating 4 stars. Next up, I have Pathfinder's Way, which is the first book in the Broken Land series. It's the first book in a proper series. I think it's 5 books. 3 books follow one couple, and then the last 2 follow a different couple. This is a fantasy romance. It's got captor-captive, enemies-to-lovers, a barbarian hero. I love it. This takes place in the Broken Lands. They had a very cataclysmic event in their kind of like recent history, which has resulted in everyone just trying to protect themselves from the monsters that roam this land. You've got like sentient frost and mist. You've got giant eagles, serpents, beetles, you name it. This place has got it. So our heroine Shea lives in the Highlands, and she is what's known as a Pathfinder, which in general should be a highly revered position. They help all of the villagers navigate the outside world in order to go trade. They know a ton about the beasts, which paths are best, keep maps. So really they are assigned to each of the villages, and they are the villagers' ticket to the outside world. Our heroine is in a particular backwood spot, we find out, because she's being punished. They don't hold her in high regard, and they don't really follow the rules that the guild has. They end up sending her back out with no rest because two idiots from their village decided to go on a mission of their own against her advice, and now she's got to go rescue them because they haven't shown back up. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. So in order to rescue these doofuses from her town, she also ends up rescuing two lowland barbarians. And one of them just so happens to be the warlord himself, who is trying to reunite all of the lands once more under a single banner. And he's been pretty successful. He is immediately taken with how capable she is with this rescue, and he basically calls dibs on her and wants to get her back. Shea's crafty, so she'll do whatever it takes to get away from him, unless she finds a compelling reason to stay, like the warlord himself. This is another one that did I say this? I don't know. I'm like losing track of what I'm talking about. This is another one that's by T.A. White. She is very quickly becoming a new favorite author. She had written that sci-fi romance series, the Firebird Chronicles, and now a barbarian fantasy. Like, I talk all the time about how much I love barbarian fantasies. Diva's writing specifically for me. I don't know how else to explain it. There's a lot of things that are kind of similar in the setup to Firebird Chronicles, but it's like remixed in a way that it doesn't feel similar at all. But reading the series back to back, I was like, I kind of see how these are a little bit similar. The world in this one feels a little bit like A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane, if you guys have read that one. The characters are entirely different though. The heroine, I really love following her because she's not very politically savvy up front. She's very much a blunt instrument, but she's scrappy. She doesn't always know how to do anything, but she'll figure it out on the fly. And the hero you initially think is very similar. He's this very menacing figure. He seems like he would be just war and violence. And you find out that he's just so incredibly politically savvy, which is why he's managed to conquer so much of the lowlands to this point. Although he's this big bad warlord and he's ooh, dibs, mine, 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 mine. Ultimately, it's her decision to be with him. So her choice and what she wants is taken into consideration. It's not just he snatches her and he's just wifey from here on out. Book itself kind of feels like two different parts almost. The first section is epic adventure, exploring the world, monsters, creatures, we're on the road, we're building friendships, exploring the world. And then the second half becomes a little bit more contained, and it's more about learning about the politics and the nuances of the Treteri culture. And it gets a little bit more focused on the romance. The romance definitely builds in the second half. It is not nearly a slow burn as Firebird Chronicles. The only downside, or the only kind of negative with this book, is that I had a hard time keeping track of this massive cast of characters. There's so many of them, but I love this book. I love a surprise barbarian fantasy. What can I say? So rating of 5 stars. I did continue on to the next 2 books in the series. The romance picks up a lot. There's still a lot to navigate with the world politically, secrets to uncover. There's still a lot that these two really need to get to know about one another in order to have a successful relationship. So it's a lot of them kind of battling through that and figuring out how to present this united front. And a lot of the second book is her trying to find her place now that her position has kind of changed. The second book is almost the inverse of the first book. The first half is a lot of politics and figuring out culture, and then the second half is a lot more adventure. So it was kind of fun to get back out on the road and back out into this world because it's just so interesting. And I just honestly, I'm go explore a cave. Tell me more about these spiders that just come crawling out of a wall. I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. Book 3 is all of the politics really culminating, and then we really have to address the heroine's background because there's some things that like, because she's been so removed from it, we haven't really had to deal with just yet. And so it's really confronting that and then them really being solidified as a united front. I think the second two books, the second and third book, I would probably give them more of a 4-star, but I think that's mostly like a me issue because I was at my conference and I didn't really have a lot of time to just like sit down and read in large swaths of time, which is how I prefer to read. This was a lot more like 15 minutes here, a half hour there. And so I wasn't quite as engaged, but I feel like that's more of a me issue. I think if I had been able to just like actually sit down and read these books how I would like to, ideally, these probably would have been 5 stars. So I'm a little bit sad. I honestly contemplated just like starting back on book 2 and rereading them. Okay, so my camera died, which I think is my sign that I need to stop yapping. I would love to hear from you what you read in March, what you've been loving, what you've been hating. If you've read any of the books that I had this month, what did you think of them? Did you love them? Did you hate them? And also, thank you so much. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Thank you for watching once again after my hiatus. I really, really appreciate you all. I've missed you so much in the past month, and I can't wait to chat with you all in the comments. With all of that said, don't forget to like this video if you did end up liking it. And if you aren't subscribed already, please do that. I would love to have you back for more videos. And I really, really hope I see you in my next video. Bye-bye.